I'm going to introduce Mark back in, and thanks very much for coming back. Let's say hello to Mark. Cheers, Mark.
There's a fellow I was just chatting to, I don't know where he's gone, but he's just blown my mind because he was picking up on my experiences at Fox FM. And he said to me, did you realise that Fox, the letters F-O-X, in numerology, translate into 666, hence Fox News. So there's another mad one. Anyway, loads more to get through, so I'm just going to whiz through this. Isn't it interesting how we see politicians and government officials doing the same hand signs that a lot of musicians are? There's Barry doing it. Just a little aside on that, this is something that occurred to me as I was putting these slides together. I found it very interesting that in the 1998 movie Independence Day, we had Morgan Freeman playing the US president. And up to that point, the idea of a blank US president would have been a very alien concept to most people. And yet, we have Morgan Freeman in this movie. I'm sure there's been other Hollywood movies around the same time where you've got a black president as well. And it just struck me that this could well be part of conditioning the public to the idea of having a black US president, because way back then in 1998, they'd already decided on who that man was going to be 10 years later. Just a possibility. So there's village idiot Bush doing it. Took him all day to practice that, bless him. And he had to put his thumb there to stop the fingers from going anywhere. Not a great surprise, Hillary Clinton, practicing witch, so what you'd expect really. And what they're doing with that hand signal, as are the many musicians, is evoking this entity known as Baphomet, this androgynous demonic entity which appears in the form of a goat-headed, that you see all over the place in popular culture. Why would this be? Moving on to this guy, John Todd. There's a fascinating video of his that you can see on YouTube where he's talking about spells being placed on master tapes of recorded music before they get put out into the market. This guy worked for a company called Zodiac Productions, and in the YouTube video he explains that that was affiliated with RCA, Columbia, Motown, which in turn was owned by Chase Manhattan, Standard Oil and Lloyd's of London. So there's a lot of tie-ins there with many of the Illuminati corporations. And he's recounting a conversation that he had with David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And it was years after John Todd had left the industry. And he was asking David Crosby, when he came across him years later, if they still conjure up demons to place into the master tapes of records before they go out there. And Crosby evidently replied, absolutely, they're still doing this. Apparently, most of the major record corporations have temples within their HQs. And they have altars in there, and they bring in witches, and they perform rituals and witchcraft functions on the master tapes of records, so that the logic being that a part of the demonic entity that they conjure up in these rituals goes out with each copy of this piece of music out into the public and kind of makes a connection with the consumer. So that's a fascinating video you might want to look up. John Todd on YouTube. I believe he's dead now, but this is going back to the 1970s. We get on to mind control, and specifically MK Ultra mind control. The definitive work on this, pretty much, was a book by a guy called Fritz Springmeier, who I interviewed for a podcast recently. And this book, The Illuminati Formula Used to Create a Total Undetectable Mind-Controlled Slave, was written in conjunction with Cisco Wheeler, who was herself apparently a survivor of MK Ultra treatment, a sex slave, as was Kathy O'Brien, who's probably the most famous example of an MK Ultra surviving victim, who Fritz Springmeier has also worked with. And we find that MK Ultra, which for many years was a secret program which was not admitted to by the CIA at all, but in 1977, in a bunch of declassified documents, the CIA actually admitted that MKUltra was real. It's gone under many pseudonyms over the years, but it basically involves trauma-based mind control. It involves subjecting the victims to horrific events which are so terrible for the mind to deal with that it shatters into different compartments which each take on an identity of their own, and the subject is left with many different personalities which have each been programmed in a different way to react in different circumstances. We hear of MKUltra being used in the case of Manchurian Candidate-style assassins. We've all seen movies where assassins take somebody out and then have no memory of what they've done, or they go into suicide programming. You hear of the likes of Mark Chapman, the guy that shot John Lennon, stating afterwards that he had no memory of it. Same with Sirhan, the guy that shot Bobby Kennedy. Famously, to this day, he claims that he can't remember anything about it. And what we hear is that these people are the victims of MKUltra programming. And it would appear that the powers that be also like to subject many prominent music artists to the MKUltra mind control treatment as well. And what they tend to like to do, as with the predictive programming that we saw earlier, is to place little visual indications into videos and record sleeves and that sort of thing to let you know what's going on, but in the sure knowledge that most people viewing it will have absolutely no clue what it means. Only a few that have studied the subject will understand the significance of it, but it seems to be important to them to place this into view. And it could well be that with the understanding they have of how reality and energy works and how you can manifest desired situations into reality by focusing will and intent on them, they're helping to empower the whole program by getting the public's attention, albeit subconsciously, into what they're doing with these images. This one is going way back. Syd Barrett, the original frontman of Pink Floyd, rock legend has it that he went a bit mad, that he lost his mind, fried his brains on LSD, according to some accounts. But there are researchers who claim that he could have been a very early victim in the music industry of MKUltra mind control and dissociative identity programming. We see here teddy bears, and it's very, very sick because some of these things that indicate mind control relate to the innocence of childhood, because what the mind control is doing is destroying innocence and defiling it. So you often see dolls with broken limbs, and you see teddy bears, and you see things relating to childhood. And something else you see often as an indicator is mirrors, and often shattered mirrors. A division of MKUltra mind control is known as monarch programming. This again relates to multiple personalities and dissociative identities. And when you look at it, you see the monarch butterfly, which symbolises monarch programming, this very distinctive yellow butterfly appearing time and time again in record sleeves and videos. Here it is associated with Mariah Carey. And when you think about some of the prominent artists over the years and all the troubles that we hear they're having in their personal lives, just think of how many of them we're told have gone off the rails, have gone a bit mad. You might remember that a few years ago, 2001, there was a story of Mariah Carey trying to kill herself, attempting suicide. She completely went off the rails. She went out of public view for many, many months. And then a few months later, she came back, renewed, refreshed, rejuvenated career, the new Mariah. It could well be that this is evidence of mind control breaking down and needing to be reprogrammed. And you see the same names cropping up again and again. Mariah Carey was married to Tommy Mottola for a time, who was the one-time boss of Columbia Records, a division of Sony. Sony is a corporation whose name comes up time and time again in all this stuff. Some people have speculated that Tommy Mottola was actually her handler, because when you get mind control victims, they are assigned handlers to oversee them, make sure they stay with the program, and make sure they're responding the way they should be. This is painted belly art on Mariah Carey when she was pregnant, symbolising a butterfly. Interesting. Nicki Minaj. Where do you start? When it comes to evidence of dissociative identities and multiple personalities in music artists, you can't get a better example than Nicki Minaj. As I said, some of the things that symbolise mind control, and the Vigilant Citizen website is an excellent resource for going into all this stuff. One of them is doll imagery, and particularly Barbie dolls. Again, something associated with innocence and childhood. It's all deeply sick and twisted, but that's what they like to do. And Nicki Minaj models herself on a Barbie doll. And in fact, one of her personas that she likes to put out there is to call herself Barbie. And Nicki Minaj's female fans are referred to as Barbs. They love to call themselves Barbs. They're Nicki Minaj followers. So they're putting it right out there in your face. Most people don't understand what's being symbolised here. Here's a still from a video by Nicki Minaj and B.O.B. And the song was called Out of My Mind. They're not even trying to hide it. So she's got pink hair. She's in a straitjacket, in a mental cell, and on the wall you've got various demented scribblings. There's a UFO there, there's an all-seeing eye, there's a pyramid. They are us, it says. They live. How can you get more blatant? One of Nicki Minaj's alter egos is Roman Zelensky. It goes by the name of Roman Zelensky. Of course, it's a reference to Roman Polanski, the paedophile film director, the guy that made Rosemary's Baby, along with many others. If you've ever heard Nicki Minaj interviewed, you'll actually hear her mid-interview slipping into an alternative personality. She often takes on a British accent. She becomes the British girl. And it's very interesting to note that Mariah Carey and Britney Spears, in interviews, often resort to a British accent. And people hearing it think, oh, that's cute, isn't that funny, she's trying to be British, isn't it great the way she puts on that British accent? But I would suggest there's something far more sinister going on here. It would seem that they're slipping into these alternative personalities that have been programmed into them. And far more than a coincidence that all three of these artists use the British accent. But back to this Roman Zelensky character. This is supposed to be a gay male that she slips into. And she put out this song, Roman Holiday. The lyrics kind of speak for themselves. Take your medication, Roman. Take a short vacation, Roman. You'll be okay. Some alterations on your clothes and your brain. Take a little break, little break. Another clue, perhaps, as to what's really going on. Although I doubt Nicki Minaj understands what's going on because she won't even know what day it is most of the time. Here's another lyric from that same song. My flow's the sickest and I'm a lunatic. And this is the Young Money, Cash Money crew that are being put out there as the top hip-hop artists of this time. These are the people that we're told are the top of the game. Lil Wayne, Drake, and that's the real Onika Mirage when she's not being Nicki Minaj. That's what she looks like. A little bit different. And when it comes to these mind-controlled artists, you look into the kind of lyrics that the likes of Nicki Minaj are putting out there. And we'll get on to some of those towards the end. It's very easy to hate on these artists and to despise them for what they're doing. But if it is the case that they've undergone this horrific mind control, trauma-based mind control treatment, then, you know, pitying them is far more appropriate than hating them, because what we're talking about here is absolutely horrific, sick, evil stuff. And skeptics will write it off. A lot of people don't want to go there. Most people are in denial when you suggest this to them, but isn't it worth considering that that's exactly the sort of reaction that they want people to have in order that this program can go on? They're counting on most people writing it off because it sounds too fantastic, too outrageous, and so they dismiss it by default action. I think more people need to start paying attention to this, or it's just going to continue unchecked for who knows how long. I'm not happy about this going on, and hopefully other people won't be either. This is the Mickey Mouse Club, which famously included a young Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera and Justin Timberlake up there in the corner. And Mickey Mouse, of course, tying into Disney. A lot of people may well be aware that the Disney Corporation is very sick, steeped in Satanism, and is a breeding ground for some very horrific things. Disney is definitely not what it seems. And there's a suggestion that a lot of the mind control programming of your favourite artists actually goes on at Disneyland in underground bases that they've got there to carry this sort of thing out. And it's very interesting to note the number of mainstream artists that are pictured with Mickey Mouse ears. It seems a ridiculous thing to wear in a publicity shoot. It certainly doesn't look cool, but quite a large number of artists are seen wearing them. We'll see some more in a minute. This, I would suggest, is another example of what happens when programming breaks down. Britney Spears, as you'll recall, in 2007 went a little bit mad, went off the rails, shaved off all her hair and started attacking cars with umbrellas. And that was written off at the time as, oh, what's the matter with her? She's so crazy. That may literally be the case, because it seems to be a classic example of the programming wearing off. And if you recall, Britney went out of the public eye for a few months, and then she was relaunched, rejuvenated career, the new Britney, reprogrammed. Interesting situation with a court case which occurred in 2012 involving one Sam Lutfi, who was one-time Britney Spears' manager. And he got into a dispute with Britney Spears' family over some ownership issues and some copyright issues, and the whole thing went to court. But there was a very interesting quote here, which states, the judge overseeing the conservatorship, which now involves her fiancé, has ruled that she should not testify as it could potentially cause her irreparable harm and immediate danger. Seems to be some very suspect phrasing as justification for the subject of a legal case not being allowed to appear in court. Could it be that she would hear something or be exposed to something that might trigger something that shouldn't be triggered? And that was known all along. Anyone know who this is? Justin Bieber, from his trip to London earlier this year. He went a bit mad. He started putting on gas masks and, turning up late for shows and talking incoherently. People wrote it off as, oh, what's the matter with him? He's so mad. But, all the hallmarks again of what goes on with all these artists at the top of the game. Back to the Mickey Mouse ears. This is Jessie J. Of course, most of the artists that I'm talking about are American artists. You don't see much evidence of what I'm talking about here in the British music industry these days, but occasionally you see the odd little clue. So here's Jessie J with the Mickey Mouse ears. Jessie J, of course, attended the Brit School in Croydon, as did a number of other prominent British artists of this time. Adele, Katie B, Rizzle Kicks, Leona Lewis, Katie Melua, Kate Nash, Amy Winehouse. The Brit School seems to be a bit of a breeding ground for the current glut of UK artists in the way Laurel Canyon was in the US back in the day. Just an interesting thought. Marilyn Manson, Mickey Mouse ears. Don't need to say too much about him, really. It speaks for itself. Azalea Banks with a Mickey Mouse t-shirt, more of the same. And so we move on to the nice, fluffy, family-friendly subject of possession, demonic possession, possibility of. This is another still from the video that we started off with, Rihanna's umbrella. And again, the researcher Lennon Honor goes into this, Vigilant Citizen goes into it as well. We have this scene here where it appears that Rihanna is turning or shape-shifting into some kind of demonic entity. Whether she is or not, it's not really the sort of thing for teenagers to be absorbing in their pop videos, I would suggest. This is another image from Beyonce's performance at Super Bowl halftime, February this year. And you can see on the image on the right there that she seems to be changing appearance in some way. It could be just put down to the facial grimace, but it does appear that there's some sort of change taking place. Beyonce's management tried very hard to get these images removed off the internet after the event, saying that they were very unflattering, which of course they are, but could they be trying to conceal something else? When it comes to alternative personalities, alter egos, Beyonce is famous for also being Sasha Fierce. She has this alternative personality called Sasha Fierce. This was covered in Rolling Stone magazine. They used the headline, "A Woman Possessed," which is interesting phrasing. There's Sasha Fierce, complete with a Baphomet dress. And there's the depiction of Baphomet again. Okay, Rain Man. While we're on the subject of possession, this is a mad one. There's this character, or this entity, that appears to go by the name of Rain Man, that has been popping up in hip-hop and R&B culture recently. So we go back to this image. Another theory as to what this represents is this demonic entity known as Rain Man. So that was Umbrella in 2007. We have this quote here from Eminem in an interview. I heard the suggestion from Andy earlier that Eminem might not be all he appears to be, but we need another bloody 2 hours to go into that one, so
Contract cancelled.
I'll leave that alone. So in the quote, he says, "My name isn't going to be Slim Shady no more Eminem either. I don't even go by my government name, Marshall Mathers. If I do come back, you know what my new name going to be? Rain Man." In a separate interview on a separate occasion, Jay-Z said, "Then I go through my Rain Man. I can't explain it to you all, it just comes out the air for me. You start mumbling." More recently, the thing that's been setting Twitter ablaze is the VMA's performance of Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus then and now, or now and then. So a bit of a change. Billy Ray Cyrus must be so proud. And an interesting thing actually, Fritz Springmeier, the guy that wrote the book on mind control, was telling me in the podcast interview that the US country scene, from the very start, has been a breeding ground for mind-controlled musicians. So interesting that Billy Ray Cyrus is a part of that. Miley Cyrus is his daughter. She did the whole VMA's performance with her tongue stuck out and indulging in all kinds of hedonism and debauchery. And there's a researcher by the name of Freeman, simply goes by the name of Freeman, who's looked into this performance, and he thinks the whole tongue-flicking thing is supposed to be evoking the goddess Kali, and that the whole performance was part of a ritual. Again, we're talking about demonic possession, basically. This guy goes by the name of Dr. Luke. His real name is Lucas Sebastian Gottwald, and I often wondered who it is that creates all this spirit-crushing, intelligence-zapping, mind-numbing garbage pop music that we're getting out there at the moment. And when you look at this guy's resume, you see that he's worked with the likes of Katy Perry, Kelly Clarkson, Pink, Britney Spears, B.O.B., Flo Rida, Jessie J, Miley Cyrus, Nicki Minaj, and Rihanna. And so this guy is someone that I'd very much like to interview because I've got a few questions for him. It would appear that he's the US music industry's go-to man for creating all this mind-controlling rubbish. Notably, he was behind the writing of Kesha's song, Die Young. Keha, whatever she's known as, Keisha. She put out this song, Die Young, last year, and it was a great song. It was all about, we're all going to die young, so we might as well just go out and get drunk and party because life's short and meaningless and nothing really matters. Those were the sentiments of the record. And they were aimed at teenage girls, and they were presenting the idea that this is what life's all about. Partying, having promiscuous sex, getting drunk, and just not thinking about tomorrow. Oh, and racking up credit and buying material items and brands. So Dr. Luke there co-wrote that record. Then, of course, we had the shooting at Sandy Hook, which occurred shortly after Die Young was released. And then the record company, in an act of feigned morality, decided to withdraw the track and say, oh no, this is in bad taste now, we can't have a record out there called Die Young when all these kids have just died. So they can get moral when it suits them, but of course it's all a charade. And Kesha, in interviews, claims that Dr. Luke and the other powers that be forced her to put out the song Die Young. She said she never really wanted to record it, she didn't really like the sentiments of it, but she was told to put it out there. She said this after the Sandy Hook incident. And she then allegedly wrote this record, Dancing with the Devil, aimed at the industry and her controllers. And the lyrics include, I keep on dancing with the devil, I sold my soul, it's a dead-end road. Justin Timberlake, yeah, we're into transhumanism. As I say, there's lots of stuff to whiz through here, but it all ties in, it's all part of the big picture. The elites, the powers that be, have long wanted a transhumanist society, the merging of humanity with technology. What they want ultimately is individuals to be microchipped and connected to a giant global computer which controls every aspect of your daily living. And what we're seeing in popular culture is a gradual normalisation of this idea that technology is great, and technology is to be revered, and technology is the future, and wouldn't it be great if we could all improve our performance as human beings with the assistance of technology. And the transhumanist agenda is being advanced big time in the music industry. And we're seeing it in all kinds of imagery. Justin Timberlake there, man and machine merged. will.i.am, who is one of the biggest exponents of this bloody awful tool of the devil, known as auto-tune. So, auto-tune is this vocal program that singers use, and it's supposed to help them to hit the right notes when they're recording a song. But of course the downside of it is it makes them sound like a bloody robot. And it first emerged in so-called hip-hop and R&B probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And it sounds goddamn awful. You're never going to meet anyone that says they likes it. All the DJs hated it. And yet, here we are in 2014 nearly, and it's still being used. How could this be? My view is that auto-tune, which makes vocalists sound like robots and sound completely artificial and mechanical, is all part of the normalisation of the transhumanist agenda. They've got their agents, they've got their puppets, and will.i.am is one of the main ones. And interestingly, we're hearing stories now of vocalists on the X Factor, when they're auditioning, trying to make themselves sound like they're using auto-tune, because they think, well, that's the way records need to sound. So if I'm going to have a hit record, I've got to sound like a robot. So they're deliberately altering their vocals to sound like they're using auto-tune. Well, we're on the subject of auto-tune. This guy, complete clown, complete joker, he goes by the name of Future. Check out his track, what is it called? Richie probably knows. Karate Chop. Yeah, Future Karate Chop. He sounds like Stephen Hawking's voice box with the batteries running out. Absolutely ridiculous. How this stuff makes it through, I have no idea. There's Little Wayne, On a Good Day. This is from My Home Is Still, which we referenced earlier. And in it, there's a line that goes, "These hoes love me like Satan, man." And when he says that, you get this image flashing up for a split second. Why would that be in a pop record? Why do these hoes love him like Satan, man? I don't understand. Sound frequencies and harmonics. We are whizzing through the subjects here, but they all fit together. A lot of producers, music producers that you speak to, will tell you all about the frequencies at which music is recorded and how that can have an effect. And for many years, the standard tuning frequency for musical instruments and recorded music was 432 hertz. And this was changed during the Second World War by Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, who decided that the new standard frequency to which instruments would be tuned would be 440 hertz. And there was apparently an attempt a few years earlier by the Rockefeller Foundation, those lovely people again, to introduce it then. But it eventually came in the 1940s, and it's been the standard frequency to which instruments are tuned and recorded music is made to this day. And people that study harmonics and sound frequencies will tell you that 440 is a very discordant, dissonant frequency that doesn't vibe well with humans, and it creates a mind state which is very unsettled and not at all positive. So why would it be that a frequency was chosen which invokes that kind of mind state in people when they hear music? And there's this Japanese researcher, Japanese scientist by the name of Masaru Emoto, who has done a lot of studies into the effect that sound frequencies have on water. And what he does is he exposes water to particular sounds, and in some cases words. They don't even have to be spoken sounds, they can be written words, because the words still carry the energy of the will and the intent that the word was intended to have, whether it's spoken or written. And he then freezes the water crystals and studies the patterns that are created as a result. And he's written books on this. It's been his whole life's work for the last 20 years or so. And here are some examples of how water crystals look when they're exposed to certain words. At the top, the positive ones: compassion, thank you, wisdom, beautiful harmonic patterns and designs. Apparently, these are the words and phrases that these crystals were exposed to. Heavy metal music, I will kill you, you fool, and something I can't read there, but horrible, nasty, discordant patterns. So I can only imagine what happens to water if it's exposed to a Nicki Minaj record. It probably turns green and starts bubbling. It'd be horrible. There's another researcher by the name of Len Horowitz, and he has put forward the idea, and he's not alone, that the universal love frequency prevalent in the universe is 528 hertz. There's a website called Love 528 which breaks down the power of this frequency, and we're told that this is the love frequency that we could do well to tune into rather than the ones that are being used. But of course we're not. This is the 27 Club, and okay, that's come out of order, but never mind. Just harking back a minute to, you remember Admiral George Stephen Morrison, who's Jim Morrison's father. Jim Morrison, of course, rock legend has it, was part of the 27 Club. And the 27 Club is a group of musicians who, through the years, just happen to have died in various circumstances at the age of 27. And this brings in the common suggestion when it comes to the music industry that the corporations running the music game from time to time decide to sacrifice their own artists. It might be because the artists concerned are becoming a bit of a problem, in the case of John Lennon or Bob Marley, for example, or it might be that it's all part of a ritual and it's designed to fulfill some sort of esoteric purpose, occult purpose. But either way, we've got Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse, and any number of others who do just happen to have died at the age of 27. I mention it purely because we're talking about strange stuff, so here's some more to throw into the mix. And on the idea of sacrifices, there was some very strange stuff. I didn't wake up to what was going on in the hip-hop game until about 2008. But I do remember in 96, 97, noting that there were some very unusual elements surrounding the deaths of Tupac Shakur, and Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls. Because in both cases, before these artists were murdered, Tupac in September 96 and Biggie in March 97, there were record sleeve images that seemed to foretell what was going to happen. So Tupac appeared on this sleeve under the artist name Machiavelli, the Don Illuminati, being crucified. Then we have Biggie's album, Life After Death, in which he's in a funeral suit with a hearse. And interestingly, all three of Biggie's albums, the titles referred to death. There was Life After Death, Ready to Die was the first one, followed by Life After Death, followed by Born Again. And it makes you wonder whether, particularly in the case of Biggie, this was an artist that was being bred for sacrifice at some point or other, all along from the start of his career. The first album being called Ready to Die rings an alarm bell or two. And here's another guy that would have a few answers. Sean Puffy Combs, aka Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. Eyes you can trust. Hip Hop Heaven. Whitney Houston with Clive Davis, her longtime mentor of Arista Records, big time insider in the industry. He's 80-something now, he's been around for years. We had this strange incident when Whitney Houston died in the bathtub upstairs in the hotel, where Clive Davis was holding a Grammys party in her honour downstairs in the same building while she was lying as a corpse in the bathtub a few floors above. And a lot of people found it quite odd that he chose for the party to carry on when this terrible news had just broken. And some people have suggested that the party was in fact a celebration of the fact that Whitney Houston had become the latest sacrifice of the music industry. And interestingly, Whitney Houston's daughter was discovered unconscious in the very same bathtub in which she was discovered the day before, in very similar circumstances, having apparently taken an overdose and apparently nearly drowned. Guru and Solar, I'm pushed for time, so I'll pass that one. Professor Griff, who was an original member of the group Public Enemy, Minister of Information for Public Enemy. This guy has loads to say about the idea that the music industry sacrifices its artists. There's YouTube videos galore, there's interviews all over the web with this guy, and he puts forward some very compelling evidence, in my view, to the fact that this is going on. So anyone that wants to look into this whole area further, I would definitely recommend looking into the work of Professor Griff, because he's the leading authority on the idea of sacrifice, and having worked in the industry, he's got an insider's viewpoint and he's got access to a whole world of knowledge that other people wouldn't have. And he's paid the price for some of his research as well. He's been the victim of many attempts on his life, he says, including his house being burnt down. So it seems he's ruffled a few feathers, and a few people don't like what he's got to say. This is another insider's book. It was by an artist on Bad Boy Records, which was Puff Daddy, Sean Puffy Coombs' label, by the name of Mark Curry. It's called Dancing with the Devil, How Puff Burnt the Bad Boys of Hip Hop. And he's giving his viewpoint as a Bad Boys recording artist on how pretty much every single artist that ever appeared on this guy's roster has ended up broke and washed up, or addicted to some substance or other, in jail, in the case of Shine, that went to jail for this guy for many years, following a shooting incident in a New York nightclub in which Puff was clearly involved but didn't do a day of jail time, or in the case of Biggie, dead. So this is a very revealing book which exposes some of the ways that this guy works. P. Diddy is a multi-millionaire. He crops up every year on the Forbes rich list as one of the richest people in hip-hop. And it would appear that he's done a thing or two to get there. There's also another suggestion that Professor Griff puts forward, is that within the music industry there's an induction process very similar to the one that's used at the Skull and Bones Secret Society at Harvard University, that Bush and Kerry and all of them have been involved with. And it involves lying naked in a coffin, surrounded by your peers, recounting your sexual history and masturbating as you lie there in the coffin. Griff claims to have evidence that this is what Puff went through to attain his position in the industry. Again, I can't say whether it's true or not, but that's a suggestion that's been put out there. Lisa Left Eye Lopez of the group TLC, who died in a car crash in Honduras in 2002, doing the old eye thing again there. This is completely mad. It's interesting how the idea of the Illuminati has now entered the public consciousness to such a degree that you have school kids drawing pictures of pyramids and all-seeing eyes and bringing it home and saying, oh, this is the Illuminati and I want to join the Illuminati. There's so much knowledge of the fact that there is a secret society network running every aspect of human life that this is the sort of thing we're seeing. And there was this story from earlier in the year of this up-and-coming rapper, or struggling would-be rapper, trying to kill his best friend, trying to shoot him, so that he could join the Illuminati and therefore advance his career and go all the way to the top. He'd heard that in order to join the Illuminati, you have to sacrifice someone close to you. And so he tried to shoot his best friend. And he shot the guy in the hand, and the friend struggled with the gun, and then this guy ended up getting shot. But it's a completely insane story, as is this one. A Facebook page appeared earlier this year out of Kenya, and it claimed to be the official Facebook page of the Illuminati. And it was inviting people to join. Come and join the Illuminati, they said. Sacrifice optional. I'd never thought of that, but yeah, well, Kenya again. So this is a still from Rosemary's Baby. We're back to Roman Polanski, who made this film in 1968. It's an amazing film. It's quite chilling and quite unsettling, and of course it's presented as a work of fiction. And in it, you've got a young couple, Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes, her husband, and he's a struggling would-be actor, wannabe actor, and it's set in New York, in the building outside which John Lennon was shot many years later, as another coincidence. But you've got this young couple, and the guy is not having much success making it as an actor, and they fall in with a group of Satanists, and the guy gets offered the opportunity to fast-track his way to fame and fortune and success if he gives up his wife to be impregnated by a demonic entity and then to have this entity's baby. And I would suggest that coming from Roman Polanski, there's a lot of inside knowledge that's been infused into the plot line of this movie, which explains what's really going on in terms of sacrifices in exchange for being fast-tracked to fame and fortune. I would suggest that this is going on in the movie industry and the music industry. People may have heard the classic legend of the bluesman Robert Johnson, who, in the story, made a deal with the devil, and he sold his soul in exchange for fame and fortune. That, again, I would suggest, is what's going on in the industry all the time. And when we're talking about selling your soul, you can't do it without addressing Kanye West. Prime example of an artist gone bad. When Kanye West first came out as a rapper, he was a producer before that for the likes of Jay-Z. He first came out as a rapper, and his first album, The College Dropout, was a modern classic. It was full of creative, inspirational lyricism that addressed really meaningful subjects. And there came a point in his career where you could pinpoint where the turning point had happened. And he was no longer putting out positive, inspiring, creative music. He was putting out the sort of mind-numbing garbage that you're getting from Kanye West now. And I think it was probably around the time that he appeared on this US telephone in aid of Hurricane Katrina, 2005. He's there with Mike Myers, and spontaneously, off script, he said on live TV, George Bush doesn't care about black people. Which is absolutely correct, but I'd probably leave out the word black. And from that point on, we have this. We have Kanye wearing his Baphomet t-shirt. We have him doing the old Illuminati pyramid sign. Here he is on Twitter in 2010. I've got a question about the Illuminati. What is it exactly? And why do people think pop stars have a membership? LOL. 2012, Illuminati, high society, blah, 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 blah. I guess he's discovered who they are. Here's some more Kanye tweets. Got a question. Can you devil worship on the new iPhone? Does Lucifer return text? It's all a big laugh, isn't it? And here's a compare and contrast. A Kanye lyric from his first album, 2003. The prettiest people do the ugliest things for the road to riches and diamond rings. And then the sort of stuff he's talking about now, which speaks for itself. Possibly the latest recruit to step up to the game, Robin Thicke. He's been around for many years, and this was him at the VMAs with Miley Cyrus a few weeks ago, wearing his Masonic striped jacket and indulging in the overall debauchery that's going on with the show, all part of the ritual. It seems Robin Thicke's been recruited. 2013 is his time. Just want to get on to some lyrics. Some of the lyrics that are going into records that young people are listening to, so-called hip-hop fans. Great, isn't it? Here's These Hoes Love Me Like Satan, man. There it is, from Lil Wayne's Love Me. That's the sort of stuff Lil Wayne is putting out there. He's being held up as like the greatest rapper of these times. Big Sean featuring Nicki Minaj, a track entitled Arse. And the hook goes, would you believe, arse, 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 arse. Ass. Okay. That's the opposite version. You can tell I'm from down south. If you're from up here, it's ass. And also, go stupid, go stupid, go stupid crops up again. As indeed you will if you listen to this stuff. Wobble-dee, wobble-dee, wobble, wobble. They play this stuff on Radio 1. It's unbelievable. Nicki Minaj, this one's, I mean, you know, we can have a laugh about it, but look at it, I mean. Kiss my arse and my anus because it's finally famous. And then, my mother's here, I don't want to say this stuff, but look at it, look at it. This is what's being put out there, and who is Nicki Minaj's target audience? It's teenage girls. It's girls of 12, 13 years of age. I've got 2 young daughters. How much do you think I'm looking forward to them growing up and listening to stuff like this? Now this gets played on the radio, and what they do to make it acceptable for radio play is they'll delete one syllable. So instead of saying pussy, it'll be pussy. And instead of fuck, it'll be k. And by deleting the middle syllable of k, it's deemed acceptable for radio play. You'll be hearing it on Radio 1, 1 Extra, Kiss FM. That's what we've come to. And I know I'm sounding a bit like a fire and brimstone preacher here, but come on now, you know, basic human morality it doesn't allow you to think that this sort of stuff is okay. If you hate it, you just need some pussy. Yeah, okay. Well, that's Birdman $1 Million Pussy. That's the title of the record. This, we're told, is where hip-hop is at. Jesus, what happened? Miley Cyrus, another heroine of teenage girls everywhere, she admitted that in her song We Can't Stop, she's singing about ecstasy. And we've got this whole trend now in music coming out of the US where they refer to Molly. And Molly is a new slang name for MDMA, i.e. ecstasy. We're very familiar with that in the UK, but they seem to have just discovered MDMA in the States. And so you've got all these references to Molly. We have Rihanna in a video, again, a split-second freeze frame. It actually says Princess of the Illuminati, putting it out there in plain view. Little Wayne on a good day again. Dr. Dre has made a fortune out of his Beats by Dre headphones. Here's an ad campaign for it, in which, inexplicably, we get 3 6s popping up. How nice. And in that one as well. What reason could there be for this? And Dre is always top of the Forbes rich list in hip-hop as well. It would appear we know how he got there. Oh. I told you we had Bono to come. When we're talking about shameful, sickening sellouts, we have to address Bono. If you judge a man by the company he keeps, then where do you even start? All the usual suspects, there they are. What a card he is, eh? What a laugh. Or laugh if you come from up here. Bono. What a guy. Okay, we're starting to wrap up now. Something we've not discussed so far is the influence of the Rothschilds. And when you're doing any kind of presentation on secret societies and cabals and Illuminati and the manipulation of human consciousness and human society, you can't leave out the Rothschilds. So recently we had Rick Ross, who stole his name from a famous drug dealer by the name of Freeway Ricky Ross, and apparently the original Ricky Ross wasn't too happy about it. But this Rick Ross is really William Roberts, and it emerged quite recently that he was actually a correctional facilities officer in the US prison system, which he probably didn't really want to come out considering he's posing as a gangster rapper, but it did anyway. So here's Officer Roberts with the cover for his Black Bar Mitzvah album, and interestingly, he's cavorting inside the Seal of Solomon, Star of David, Rothschild family emblem, depending on your interpretation of the symbol. And does anyone know who this is? It's not Phil Mitchell. It's Boy George. He's changed a bit, hasn't he? That's Boy George, and on the top of his head, for some reason, he's got the same symbol. Could he be symbolising who owns him? The Rothschilds? Who knows? Quick reference to this. This is a letter which emerged last year, and it made all the hip-hop press at the time, and a lot of people claimed it was a hoax. There's never really any way of knowing whether it's a hoax. Of course, there's always going to be people that claim that things are, but it was from a music industry insider, allegedly, who in the early 90s was part of one of the big corporations, and he got called to a meeting along with the heads of all the other big music corporations of the time. This was in 1991 in Los Angeles. And he says that they wheeled in this guy that nobody had ever seen before, and he introduced himself as a representative of the US private prison industry. And he explained to all these heads of the music corporations that they were in an absolute crucial position in being able to manipulate and mould young black males into pursuing criminal lifestyles by the glorification of certain ways of living. And the idea was that through music, which some people might call gangster rap, it's been labelled there, these corporations would encourage a whole generation of young black males to pursue a criminal lifestyle, which would result in the US private prisons having a constant supply of inmates, thus making the individuals that run this system very rich and ensuring their continued survival. And this guy, he never revealed his identity, but he claims that he was absolutely outraged by it, dismayed by it, and he walked out of his job, and only 20 years after the event did he feel confident enough to tell the story. So again, people must make up their own mind as to whether this is genuine or not, but it does sound plausible. And remember this guy? This is a more recent, not the most flattering picture, this is a more recent apparent example of an insider. This guy popped up on YouTube a few weeks ago claiming to be one Robert Connors of the US Department of Defense. And he claimed that he had inside knowledge of how the music industry was being used to mind control and manipulate the public according to a much wider agenda. And he claimed that he was going to unleash devastating material which would reveal how this was being done. And at the end of this video, which you can still get on YouTube, he played what purports to be a recording of Michael Jackson shortly before he died, on the phone to a friend, claiming that he knew he was going to get killed. Similar to what Diana did back in the day with her friend. This guy claimed that a week after posting the video, he was going to unleash this devastating evidence, but he never did. It's not been forthcoming, nothing more has been heard of from this guy. He might be propping up a flyover somewhere, but I suspect that it was a hoax. And what we're seeing now is a lot of hoaxes coming from official sources to try and debunk researchers that are getting a little too close to what's really going on out there. We're seeing in all walks of the so-called conspiracy arena. There have been 9/11 hoaxes that have come out recently, and this one, I suspect, was put out there from official sources to sow confusion and sow dissent, get people arguing, and take people's eyes off where they should really be focusing on. That's my view on what this one was all about. So, the other big music genre that is favoured by generations of young people all over the world is what's these days being referred to as EDM, or electronic dance music. It's basically house music, club music, that's been around for 20, 25 years in the UK, but it's just being picked up on in certain other parts of the world. And if the powers that be have done such a successful job in infiltrating hip-hop, R&B, pop music, you would imagine that they would also want to have a finger in the pie of EDM as well. And so I've noticed there's some interesting imagery starting to crop up in EDM circles. Paul van Dyk, one of the biggest DJ producers out there, is using this intriguing logo in the form of a crop circle. Looks like an inverted pyramid. There's bound to be some occultic significance to it, which others will pick up on. And this is the symbol for a big dance music festival in Belgium called Tomorrowland. Interesting use of phrase again, and we've got the all-seeing eye in the middle of that one. So it seems the dance music scene is being infiltrated now as well. Why would you leave it out? So just starting to wrap up then. So far, given that we've talked about mind control and demonic possession and all the rest of it, you might think that all of this is pretty much doom and gloom, very negative, and of course it could be perceived that way, but I'm not going to end on that note, because I always want to end on a positive, inspiring note, and put out there the point that things don't have to be the way they are right now. The only reason things are the way they are is because people have allowed it to happen. People have allowed it to get this way. We've got the power of free will and choice, And we're living in incredible times now where all kinds of truth and all kinds of knowledge and all kinds of revelations are coming to the surface, and they just weren't there before. And we've got this awakening of human consciousness, and we've got an understanding of these great truths, and we've got the opportunity to apply our power and our free will and our choice to make things better. And I'm confident that that's what's going to happen. What it takes is people, first of all, facing up to the fact that this stuff is going on, and then undertaking not to make any kind of energetic connection to it, just to not involve it in their lives. With all this garbage music that we hear on the radio and in clubs and all of that, you don't have to be listening to this stuff. Good music is still being made. There's real artists out there. If you dig beneath the surface, you can find it. Don't play into all this stuff. This statement really resonated with me. If not now, then when? If not you, then who? And recently in an interview, I was asked, why are you doing all this stuff? Why are you putting this information out there? Why, it must be detrimental to your career. You must be burning bridges doing this. And I thought about it for a minute, and I just said, well, I've come to understand that all this stuff is going on. I'm in an ideal position to put this information out there to others so that they can make of it what they will. Given my background in the industry, hopefully what I say will carry some credibility and some relevance, rather than if somebody else had said it. So if that's the case, why am I going to say, oh, I don't want to do this, somebody else can do it? And I don't want to be saying, oh, I'll do it in a couple of years, it doesn't suit me to do it right now. If not you, then who? And if not now, then when? I just decided that somebody needs to say all this stuff, and now is the time to say it. And I think we're going to see some incredible times in the next few years. I think a lot of things are going to change. A lot of people are going to face up to these truths, uncomfortable and unsettling as they may be. The truth isn't always convenient, but it's always the truth. And we can make a difference just by applying our will and our intent to it. And that's what I feel is going to happen. I just want to mention the fact that in less than a month's time, we've got the People's Voice TV and radio channel launching. That's David Icke's project. It's going live on the 18th of November. TV and radio, 24 hours a day, online. I'm going to be doing a show each week called The Sound of Freedom. It's a 2-hour conscious music showcase. And it's the place to go if you want to hear real music by real artists who are addressing the many subject areas that the People's Voice is going to be going into, from the conspiratorial and the angry and the confrontational to the spiritual, uplifting, inspiring. Going to be doing that each week on that channel. So something to look forward to there. And just to finish, my website for all my other output is markdevlin.co.uk. I've got an ongoing podcast series which goes under the banner of Good Vibrations, and that's where I'm interviewing a number of interesting guests about all manner of things. Fritz Springmeier's on there, Lennon Honor's on there, I've got Ian R. Crane, I've got Andy Thomas, Max Egan, a whole bunch of interesting speakers on there. Was there anything else I wanted to mention? I don't think there was. I think that's it.
Right, we can plan now, we'll wait. We've got about 5 minutes, so I didn't know if anyone had any questions.
Happy to do questions if anyone's
I was
got
at the
one.
back of their arm. Somewhere over the rainbow imagery,
Well, No, this Q&A session is going to be quite quick because, in a word, no, sorry.
Next question.
No further information, so... Yeah, I've not come across that at all, but it's interesting stuff. No, but something else to research there. No, all new to me, but thanks for it. Still.
Another question. You mentioned earlier about the guy who shot his friend and accepted the Illuminati. I've got a friend who believes that there is a kind of acceptance thing where they have to sacrifice a blood relation or blood relative, such as Kanye West, his one guy.
Dr. Dre's brother.
Yeah, Dr. Dre's brother, and Michael Jordan's dad. Exactly, yeah. And Jennifer Hudson, the whole family died.
Yeah.
So you said it's quite ridiculous. Do you believe they have to do that?
He brings his mum and dad with him.
Keep an eye on them then. No, I can't prove that this goes on, but you have to go with what resonates with you and what feels right. And it feels absolutely plausible to me that this sort of thing goes on. You know, there's some very suspicious circumstances surrounding Kanye's mum. Here one minute, gone the next. And he loved his mum. You know, it was well known that he adored his mum. And Dr. Dre's brother, Jennifer Hudson's family, as you say, it certainly appears plausible to me. It sounds ridiculous to people when they first hear it, but, you know, I've put all the evidence out there that I can. People have to make up their own minds, but I know what I feel about it.
Did you notice on one of your pictures that Alistair Crowley looks like old Professor?
Actually, he does, yeah.
Yeah?
He looks like Boy George these days as well.
That he looks like old Professor. And on one of your pictures where you saw, who was that girl who was doing that?
Beyonce.
Yeah, you said it was 2 sixes, the other 3.
Yeah, I had that pointed out to me at the break, but yeah, I see it. You got the 6 and then the 3 fingers, so 6 to the power of 3. Yeah.
And also, David Icke's ex-wife does that as well. Teaching on the internet.
Or Pamela. Pamela, yeah. That would figure.
Thank you for your talk. I've kind of been looking into this stuff for quite a while, and what I've been really interested in is sort of debate about psychology, is whether it's sort of trying to actually influence people, mind control, things like that, and on the flip side of whether it's simply there for the sake of communication between people who are sort of putting that symbology there. And so I'm just wondering if you've got any kind of viewpoints on sort of, you know, where you can draw the distinction between the two, whether you think both is going on. Is the symbology there for a purpose to influence people? Or is it just simply there for...
I've found, looking into all this stuff, and I don't just look into music industry stuff, I look into the whole arena of conspiracy, so-called, and spirituality and all the rest of it. The powers that be seem to like to do things for more than one reason. There's usually a main reason, and then some subsidiary reasons, which are kind of bonus. And my view with the symbolism is that it's enabling the public that are seeing these symbols to make an energetic connection with the symbols and the will and the intent that they're charged with, which of course is malevolent and negative, without them realising what's going on. But I also believe that there's an element of communication between those that know what's happening. It's a kind of secret coded language. And I also think there's an element of rubbing people's noses in it, rubbing researchers' noses in it, because there's going to be a small number of people that look at these symbols and they're like, I know what's going on here. This is satanic, bloody occult symbolism in a pop video. But the powers that be know that the vast majority of people won't see that. And so those few that can are just having their noses rubbed in it. It's like they're saying, yeah, what? You know what we're doing, we know what we're doing, that lot don't, and they never will. What are you going to do about it? I really do feel they're kind of playing mind games with us. But that's going to change.
Hi, Mark. It's interesting that most of your focus was on hip-hop and not rock music. I wonder if rock and metal is less prone to manipulation because it's coming from a more underground level and there's more of a sort of close culture, positive culture amongst sort of metal fans and whatever. Whereas hip-hop tends to be very materialistic in its basis, and I'm wondering if that's why perhaps rock music hasn't been manipulated.
Well, hip-hop's very materialistic now, but it wasn't always that way in the early days. And the reason I focus so much on hip-hop and R&B, so-called, is because that's the type of DJ that I've been for the last 20 years. So it's the music that I know the culture, so I can speak more on that than I can on rock. I've never really studied rock music. But I think rock music was quite clearly infiltrated in a much more major way in the 1970s and probably into the 80s. And what we've got now is just hip-hop being the fashionable music of the time. And so the emphasis has shifted from rock to hip-hop, and they're putting all their energy into that. That's what the kids are listening to. In 10 years it might be something else, it might be EDM, in which case more emphasis will get put on that, I feel. But yes, they're in rock music, or has been, for sure. Are we done?
Oh, no, there's one more question.
One more.
I know, that's no best.
Whatever up to Run DMC? That's the last one on.
Well, that's an interesting one because
that was a really sublime praise, didn't it?
well, one thing that I didn't mention in the sacrifice section, or at least the section of prominent artists who just happened to have died, is that Jam Master Jay, who is one of the original founding members of Run DMC, was shot, murdered in a recording studio in 2002. I think I'm right in saying the case has never been solved, or that they've never pinned it on anyone. But yeah, Jam Master Jay was taken out. So the remaining members of Run DMC are still out there, but it ain't the same as it was. Not that I've heard of, no. Anything is possible.
We've got to wrap it up, so I want to just say a big thank you to Mark for coming out and bringing his mum and dad and travelling all the way.